All right, and we're live.
Okay.
So I'm sure you guys are noticing that, last week I changed it to a still image because I couldn't get the camera to work. But then I kind of realized I kind of like doing the audio version instead because I don't have to worry about the camera and the lighting and that's like a whole bunch of extra work that I have to put in. And I'm just like, I'm not doing anything that interesting with my face or my expressions, so I think I'm just gonna try and switch this over to podcast style for the time being.
Yeah, we were also thinking about how with just the audio format, there's a lot more platforms that are available. So we're not really serious about doing any of that right now, but we're thinking about it. So if you guys have any podcast platforms that you like, let us know. We'll think about it. Keep it in mind.
Also, we get to use the super fancy microphone because I can't quite get it set up with in the other room. But this is real nice because I can tune the sensitivity so like I can sit further away and still be heard very well, and you can sit closer and you still get heard just as well. So there might be a little bit of finagling in the weeks to come as I try and test what sounds better. But I'm starting with this, and hopefully it turns out well.
All right. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and start with some reviews.
Yeah, we broke 400 reviews this week.
Yeah, all right.
And I'm like, that's
with
nuts.
this story alone, not with your fan fiction, because your fan fiction has a lot more.
Oh my goodness, no! I must have several thousand reviews.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, no, 400 with this story.
I mean, you're logged into my Google on my phone, and I get your notifications when people.
You can always log out of my Google.
I like having it. Well, I like listening to your music.
Oh, okay.
I don't have Spotify.
I was listening to that song. You got it stuck in my head. The Becca Shea King.
Oh.
I was listening to that while I was doing a drawing earlier, and Daniel walks up to me and he's just like, "Daddy, are you listening to Mommy's music?" Because normally when she plays music, they're like, no, Mommy, we want Daddy's music.
Yeah. Yep.
Poor Mommy.
Yeah, they always, and anytime they're with me, they ask for your music. And actually, today, Daniel was very nice. He said, Mommy, can I listen to your music today? And I turned on Toby Mac, and he says, Mommy, this is Daddy's music. I'm like, well, I'm allowed to like the same things as Daddy. So, anyway, it was funny. Anyway.
That is amazing.
Moving on. Sorry.
We will get to reviews. Some of these are like from chapter 1, but I saw those and I thought they were good enough that we should go ahead and cover them. So, we're going to start with Artemuus, I think his name is.
All right, Artemuus. Hello. Welcome.
Welcome.
This is from Red vs. Blue season 13, right? Man, I love it already.
Yeah, man. I've been watching some Red vs. Blue clips lately. I definitely took the prologue is definitely not a parody, but a parallel, I suppose, of Epsilon's Goodbye from season 13. But the show's never gonna stop being funny to me. I know there's some people in this room who think it's stupid, but I'm just like, you know what? It takes me back to a time when my brothers and I would wait every week for a new episode to come out so that we could laugh about something stupid.
Oh.
And toward the later half of the toward season, I want to say seasons 5 through 10, they got really good at storytelling as opposed to telling stories to drive a joke kind of thing. It kind of became the other way around. And then seasons 10 through 13 were still good, but I felt like things were starting to decline. And then after that, I was just like, nope, all right, I'm done. This is not what it used to be. But yeah, man, I love the early works of Red vs. Blue.
Ugh. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know I'll probably...
There are moments in it that you have laughed at.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a different time, man. I can't relate. But cool. I'm glad you guys share that.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Your Hero Academia, man.
All right. Kale Cream. Bro, I can't believe you. Hello from the Philippines, by the way. I'm currently on holiday.
Hey.
How are you guys? Oh,
doing good. We came off of our own holiday recently.
Yeah, we went up to Colorado. It was really nice. We were up. What was the elevation we were at?
We were at 11,000 feet, and
No, it was more than that, wasn't it?
It was 11,400 feet or something like that. Because here we're 8,000 feet.
Oh.
And then over there it's 11,000 feet.
All right. I thought it was more for some reason.
No, I'm almost positive it was 11,000.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I've dealt with altitude changes and stuff before, but I guess I'm starting to get older because I stepped out of the car at a gas station after we were getting close to the the new elevation that we're going to be staying at, and it felt like I had just stepped off a boat. I was like, I don't even get seasick, but I was like, I bet this is what seasickness feels like. Oh my goodness.
I've lived at high elevation my whole life. I've never really experienced elevation sickness, and that was just a whole nother level.
You had a friend who would like always get elevation sickness,
yeah,
right?
poor thing. She would go visit her family, and she'd always get it. I even went to visit her family up in Colorado, and I didn't experience it, but it wasn't quite as high. I mean, I've been to Colorado plenty of times too. I've been to, but the cities are the big cities are lower elevation, like than like some of the mountain towns, like where we stayed, and so it was a lot different. I don't know, but it was really cool. I hope you're having fun in the Philippines. That's so cool. You'll have to tell us about it. All right.
I'm sorry. Why can't you believe me? It's me. Of course I would do this.
He loves torturing you guys. Okay. And it's been I feel bad, but it's been 2 weeks and I genuinely can't even remember what she's referring to. But we'll move on.
The last chapter was Aizawa tells the entire class to fight Kurai.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what it was. All right, thank you, Kale Cream. Have fun on your holiday.
Yeah. Joe
Clone. Okay, this isn't fair. Not a day out of the hospital and he's being pitted against his friends.
No. He had a day of work. He had a day of rest.
1 day. That's what he's saying.
Okay. He says not a day out of the hospital.
Okay, he
had
1 day big whoop.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
That's more than Aizawa would normally give somebody.
True. All right. Not cool, UA. I don't care what the reasoning is. Give the new hero a break before you toss him to the dogs like a slab of meat you treat him like.
Okay, that's a little harsh.
Well, to be fair, we want to strengthen them, not psychologically damage them.
Yeah.
But there's I think I could argue either side.
Yeah, there is reasoning behind it. I get the feeling you guys probably the full reasoning will be revealed next chapter. I get the feeling you guys probably aren't gonna like it the way these reviews are coming, but not everything these guys do you guys are gonna like. So there's that.
All right. Glad that Aries living with everyone at the school now. More chances for cute things with her.
Yeah, that was a fun part to write.
Oh yeah,
I liked that.
Aries the best. All right. As for the strategy against Kai, Weiss gets the prize for finding the Bakugo button and pushing it with expert finesse she's known for. Cold and deadly. That's how she'll be as a heroine, I can tell. Fans gonna be flocking to her in real life, as ugly as that gets. Shiver.
Oh man, I can't wait for the. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Oh man, that keep holding on to that, guys. That's good. This is gonna be really funny later on down the line.
Loving everything in the story and waiting eagerly for the next installment. Plus Ultra.
You said you were gonna stop doing that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Oh, sorry.
No, you didn't. I was just messing with you.
He hates it when I mimic the sub. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Let's see. All right. All right. We have a longtime fan of ours returning. This guy messaged me a few weeks back and he was like, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" I was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I haven't done some of my other stories lately, but I've been working on this one." And he was like, "Oh, I haven't seen My Hero Academia." I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." He's like, No, I'm gonna go binge the series." He binged the series so that he could read this story.
What a sweetheart.
I'm just like, he has got to be my most dedicated fan on this website. I love all y'all. The Last Robin, you get the MVP this year. Come on.
That's some serious commitment, man.
Oh, man, yeah. He's 2 days into our vacation to Colorado. He's just like, "I'm in the middle of season 3. I can't stop. Please send help." He's like, "I need sleep." I just replied to sleep is for the week. Yeah,
honestly, if I hadn't discovered that show in the second season, I totally would have been like that, so.
Oh, man, I was hooked after the second episode, honestly.
Oh yeah, me too.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this for as long as I can, and
I was so intrigued. I wasn't even bothered by the ridiculous crying because Deku's just me. So
I caught up to it the week I caught up to it like in time for the semester exam where Bakugo and Deku had to fight All Might, and then I started watching it as it came out weekly.
Nice. Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know the timetable, but I love it. Yeah. So yay, Last Robin's here. All right.
All right.
Starting late, but back in the game.
Yeah.
I like the dynamic changes so far. I'm intrigued on where this will go. Thank you for removing he who shall not be named. Vast improvement.
I appreciate that, man.
You are not.
Yeah,
the only one,
we are
dude.
glad to have you back, man.
All right, good to hear from you, man. All right, Light Hero Kaiser. Most interesting, great chapter, mate. Can't wait for more. Kaito, covered in cuts. I hate you, Toga. Toga. No, you don't. We're teammates. Kaito, true.
What?
Light. That's right. Toga is going to be a hero in my story. Blade Hero Light and Bow Hero Impact signing out.
Oh man, like,
bro,
I've seen that.
Bro.
I've seen that done in a few stories, and like, it's something that I have yet to see be done well.
Yeah, good luck, man.
Like the best premise, the premise that I found that is passable is like shortly after she runs away from home, like she'll run into somebody who like ends up being a better influence on her, and like is able to get her the help that she needs. But I'm just like, I don't know.
I could see her being like the demon doctor in Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she's too erratic for that.
She's not stable enough, but like the way her quirk works, potentially long term.
Oh, okay.
If she were a good guy.
If she were a good guy, she'd be like an underground hero. I feel like because she
like a vigilante.
No. Like someone like Aizawa, like someone who doesn't stay in the spotlight. Because it's like, you know, once villains know, it's like, because if you think about it, like she snags somebody's blood on the sly, she can go and impersonate them at a meeting or something, catch drug dealers in the act and stuff. That infiltration would be very easy for her, as she's done with hero schools and stuff. But yeah, no, she's just, I don't know.
Well, I'm curious. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Good luck with that, man.
Yeah, keep up the good work, dude.
No one can say you have a lack of ambition if nothing else.
No, that's great. I mean, that's the whole point of fan fiction is taking an idea and rolling with it and like playing with it and working on your writing in the process. So
this is true. This is very true.
All right. Thank you, Light Hero Kaiser. I mean, Majin Lightus. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Silly Kita. And once again, I find myself exploring the broader spectrum of emotions within the span of a single chapter. It was great to see Kudai getting to play with Eri and his friends, as well as learn a little bit about him and his family dynamic when he was younger. I think you already covered that he played baseball as a little kid, but it was kind of cool to see how when his priorities started to shift on being a child, an aspiring child hero.
I covered... Yeah, I covered that in chapter and it's in a flashback. His dad was making him practice his swings. I think it was the chapter where he lost his arm. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was one of the moments that was very cinematic. That was like the other one, aside from the
fight against the Nomu.
The Nomu, that was the one where I was like, I see the flowers, I see that little anime flashback lighting, I see it.
The J.J. Abrams lens flare.
Yes, exactly. With the little Cosmo flower waving back and forth. Like, absolutely.
I should have put licorice flowers in the background because like those are like usually symbolized when someone's about to those are usually utilized when someone's about to die.
Brat.
So I'm like, I should have put that in the background.
Keep messing with these people, messing with their heartstrings. All right. I wonder if we might ever see the conversation between him and his parents about him wanting to go to UA without a recommendation.
Ooh.
It would have to be a flashback, obviously, but you might indulge a thought of mine. Maybe an event like that would be good for Akurui to reflect on after his brother dies. Oh, that's a very good thought, dude.
Yeah.
Food for the thought. I don't want to derail your thought process. No, man, that's a
solid idea.
So, I mean, that's the thing. he's got like a really solid structure at this point. Like there's just little details that are good for fleshing out and making it more like
I might have to find a way to work
engaging.
that in though.
No,
like,
absolutely. That's a really good one. If you don't mind, that'd be great. Yeah. Side note, having read some of your other stories, it seems like you mentioned Shorin-ryu karate as a skill of your
Shorin-ryu.
Yeah. As a skill for your characters multiple times. I know you and your brothers each studied some form of martial arts. Is that one of them? Or is that the one that Daniel learns in the Karate Kid?
I believe Daniel learns an Okinawan karate in the Karate Kid. I don't know if it's Shorin-ryu. I'd have to look that up. But yeah, I've been studying Shorin-ryu karate. Let's see, what's the full name? Okinawan Shorin-ryu Matsubiyoshi Karate Do. I've been studying that since I was about 6 years old, on and off. I've also I did a few years of Taekwondo when I was overseas because they didn't have a karate. They didn't have a dojo out there.
Didn't your brothers get into Taekwondo for a while, a few years
back?
We
were all doing Taekwondo together, and then Josh and John moved on to Kung Fu after a while.
That's right. I knew there was something.
I decided to stick with karate.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, it's the martial arts form that I'm the most familiar with, so
it's easier to write because you know how to choreograph it, right?
In my head, yeah, it's a good frame of reference for my head.
Gotcha.
Like I don't really describe like the technical movements in detail, but I feel like I know how someone would move if they had these abilities, and were based with this training.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So
yes, to answer your question, yes.
See, and I read Daniel, and I think my son Daniel, and then Karate Kid. Sorry, finish the sentence. I was like, he hasn't started karate yet, but thank you. No, yes. Speaking of which, I am so behind on Cobra Kai. I need to catch up. I don't know if anyone else has watched it.
She took our kids to. Why do I always say my kids? They're our kids. She took our kids to watch me on a couple of lessons. And afterwards, she made the mistake of asking our daughter, who we tried to enroll in dance school about a year back, but wasn't the right time. She wasn't really in it. So Becca asked her. She's like, so Natalie, Daddy does karate. You think you're ready to get back into? You think you're ready to get back into dancing?
No, I didn't even say Daddy does karate.
Oh, okay.
We were putting on her ballet slippers because we couldn't find her tennis shoes, and she asked to put on the ballet slippers, and it was so cute because she was pointing and flexing and doing her little plie, and I was like, "Oh, Natalie, are you ready to go back to dance class?" She says, "No, I just want to fight like Daddy."
And then we have my son in the corner who's like copying my stances like as I'm doing them. I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, no, they're totally into it. They're gonna be as soon as Daniel's out of diapers, they're gonna be doing it. All right, sorry. Back to the story. No, I'm sorry. We are way worse about our tangents than you guys. It's
tangents
good.
Are fun, man.
Yeah, it's good narrative-wise that Kudai continues to manifest symptoms of his PTSD, but even more so that he's utilizing the tools and relationships he has in order to keep the stress from taking a hold of his actions again. Character growth is always great to see. On the other hand, poor Kudai can't even go a relaxed day without something reminding him of all the crap that he's going through.
Yeah, man, you don't get to pick and choose when your PTSD decides to act up.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. It's like
it'll get you when you're least expecting it.
And in certain cases, you can dissociate to a certain point for a while, depending on your personality. But generally, especially when it's that fresh, a lot of personalities, it's really hard to just turn that off.
Yeah.
Which I do know people who can, and they just really severely dissociate. But it depends on the person. Absolutely. That's a good point. I'm still holding out on my theory that he's going to die sometime in the next few months. But I sincerely hope that he gets to experience some measure of peace that lasts a little longer than 5 minutes before the end.
No comment.
Of course, that won't be happening anytime soon because what the hell, Yue?
Oh, man.
I get that the heroes don't always get to pick and choose what they have to go when they have to go in battle, but when they have an opportunity to rest, they should be able to take full advantage of it. If I had been writing this, I feel like I might have had had most of his classmates protest a little harder against the idea of the exercise. But I guess I may have underestimated his friend's faith in him.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think necessarily protesting it would mean that they don't have faith in him. It just means that they're good friends and they don't want him to totally break down.
Yeah.
You know? I get that. At the same time, as heroes, you need to know that you're not going to have some, because they're going to face all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Us just having family members who've worked in the medical field, they don't get to just call in whenever they're having a hard time coping with seeing their last patient, you know?
Yeah.
And so you need to know that you can have hard hours and you're not going to snap and do a bad job. You still need to do work to the best of your ability, even in these awful, traumatizing situations.
And, like, it's not, like, I don't think it's ever stated out loud, really, as such, but, you know, if you're going to UA, you're shooting for the top. Like, you're aiming to at least be a top ranking hero, and the top ranking heroes are the ones that have to work the hardest. Like, so they didn't come to this school to have an easy time.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if you were going to another school, I could see them being a little bit more lax about it. But yeah, that's a really good point. At the same time, I totally get you, man. I think especially after all this guy's been through, and because of the history of different students with psychological damage going off the rails and going rogue, it would maybe be prudent for the school to kind of do a psych eval and give him some space for a while. Because that's pretty typical when police officers and paramedics and, EMTs see something really, really bad.
Yeah.
It's typical for them to get a psych eval and have some time off. Because
he's getting a psych eval. It's not being covered in the chapter.
Okay, good. See, and I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
He's getting a psych. More responsible.
Yeah, he's getting a psych eval, but they haven't exactly decided what they're going to do with him yet.
Gotcha. And so I have a feeling, it's my hunch that this is a little bit part of that process.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. All right. So, okay. If I'd been writing this, I read that part. I wouldn't say that this idea feels forced into the story. It really does fit in quite well. But something about that interaction didn't quite feel right to me. I did enjoy the strategy meeting, especially, or do you want to pause there?
I think you missed a sentence. Maybe I'm missing something that would help it make total sense.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm just missing something that let it make total sense. No, I could see them fighting it a little more, especially like Kaminari.
Some of them did protest.
Yeah, they did. But it's like, I don't know. Aizawa also puts the fear of God into his students.
Yeah.
And after a little bit of protesting, he just gives you the look. He has that teacher look, and they shut down.
Yep.
I'm still working on that teacher look. It works with the little guys, not with the big guys.
Mine works too well.
Well, you have the dad look. That's another level. All right, the mom.
Is the dad and the mom look? Is that like a step above the teacher?
Yeah, because your teacher in real life can't whoop you. Your parents can absolutely extend consequences because you live with them. Your teacher you see for a little while and then you say hasta la vista and go home for the weekend, you know? So it's like the consequences don't carry over as severely with teachers. But Aizawa can straight up like body slam you with his scarves. So which I think it's anime comedy more than anything. I think in reality it's more like big scary presence giving you a dirty look and threatening to use his quirk. Like that's enough in and of itself.
Yeah.
But that I think in my opinion, narrative wise, the like over the top like tying people up with a scarf is more of like a comedic emotional response to what's going on. But that's just where I'm at. I don't know. I think we could debate that any day. But that being said,
fair enough.
Yeah, I totally get you, man. All right. Maybe I'm just missing something. I did enjoy the strategy meeting, especially since I believe we'll be. I hope that's the case. I doubt you'd bring it up in the narrative without being ready to put it into play in some way or another.
So for a refresher, Mina Mina was a part of the strategy meeting against him. And they're like, okay, one of his chakras does this, the other one does this, the other one does this, and they're like, all right, cool. He's got 4 of them. And Mina's like, he actually has 5, but even she doesn't know what the ability does.
Because he hasn't really
he hasn't used it. He hasn't figured out how to use it in combat yet.
Yeah. All right. So he says, unless I'm mistaken, he has yet to reveal / unlock the following 3 chakra abilities. Solar plexus, yellow, throat, blue, and crown, purple.
You're not mistaken.
I feel like he's been holding out with either the yellow or the blue chakra, since the crown chakra is usually associated with a sense of completion, not something that he'd have had access to until recently, given his constant emotional state.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Maybe he can use it now. But Mina mentioned that he's had this one for
a while.
Sorry, I lost my place because my eyes are glazing over. It's been a long day.
Do you need me to finish?
Yes, sorry. Right. I'm totally...
Mina's mentioned that he's had this one for a while, so I doubt it, but you've pulled sneakier moves before. Am I reading too much into this?
That's the purpose of the comments.
Yeah.
That means you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Regardless of how I feel about the leading into it, I'm certainly excited to see who wins this contest. I'm thinking that it'll be the rest of the class that wins, but Kudai's a smart cookie. I'm sure he'll keep the surprises coming at every step of the way.
If that's your expectation, you will not be disappointed this coming chapter. I promise you that.
Can't wait to see how it all turns out.
All right.
Well, thank you, Silly Kita.
Yeah, thanks all of you for helping us break 400 reviews on this thing. Holy cow.
It's great,
That's nuts. That's insane to me. Like, oh, man. You guys are awesome.
See, it's just insane to me that you've, actually met a couple of random fan fiction readers in our town who have suggested your story
stuff to me.
To you.
That was one person who suggested my stuff to me. The other person was we were discussing different fan fictions that we had read, and they were like, yeah, I read this one. I was like, oh yeah, I wrote that.
That's so funny. How does it feel to be a fan fiction celebrity? Just kidding. Just kidding. But yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you guys for the support. Really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And I think some of you asked about our trip. Honestly, I won't give away too much, but we had some really awesome brainstorming happening. Yeah. And I think that we were able to kind of get an action plan for how writing is going to look moving forward in a certain regard. So we're not going to share too much of it at the moment, but
it was a productive trip.
It was a very productive trip as far as planning for future stories as well as, other current projects. So thank you for tuning in. And
here's one fun fact I'll say. If you're ever writing My Hero fanfiction and you need an idea for quirks, just literally go people watch. You will come up with so many ideas.
I know. It was amazing because we're in this super teeny tiny Colorado mountain ski town, and there's all of these tourists. So we have all of these different people that are super weird, and then they just happen to have this music festival which really brings out the weirdos. We straight up had acrobats, so it was we had all kinds of cool architecture, cool landscapes, people made
for some good drawings.
Oh yeah, we did some gesture drawings out there while we were walking around, and people watch, dude. Just come up and start making up personalities for the people you're people watching. It's great. Yeah. I used to hang out with I still do, but it's funny going places with our sister-in-law because she loves to try to come up with what people are saying when they're having conversations you can't hear. And it's honestly hilarious the things she comes up with, and you can just create these. I don't think I've
ever been witness to this.
Oh no, you can come up with imaginary personalities for these people you've never met.
I understand the concept. I just want to see her do it. Because, I don't know how well I'd do at that.
Yeah, no, I was trying to do it, but you were so busy talking about writing that I didn't get a hold
I'm
of it.
sorry. You got me started.
Yeah, I did. I planted a few ideas. Sorry, guys. Anyway.
I'm not. But
Yeah.
all right, we'll let you guys get to the chapter, and we'll be back in a little bit to discuss behind the scenes stuff. So, be back in a bit.
From the moment I reached the other side, I could not hide from the great divide. I can't turn back time, and my soul was mine. Get back what I lost, no matter the cost. Is there no way home? Is there no way home?
Class A versus Energon. The battle group did their best to move with relative silence throughout the fake city that was the battlegrounds on which they would face their most dangerous classmate. Not only was he immensely powerful, his cunning and judgment allowed him to fight monsters on the same level as villains capable of putting the number one hero in the hospital. It was a daunting prospect to take him on, even when they had over 20 heroes on their side working to take him down. Anyone see anything yet? Yang asked after about 5 minutes of walking. No, answered Jiro, using the headpieces they had been given for the exercise. He must not be in my quadrant, because I'm only hearing Aoyama and Sarah are out here. I got nothing, Sato said. Same, Shoji added. One by one, the members of the rescue team reported being unable to find a sign of their opponent. Well, I kinda expected that, Mine muttered. He's probably sizing us up, trying to figure out how to take out each group. Hopefully Kachan can draw him out before too much time passes, Izuku said in a lowered tone. Don't forget that if he makes it out of the city with even one citizen, he wins, Weiss reminded everyone over the radio. Rescue teams, make sure you're keeping an eye on the exits as you progress through the city.
We know.
Asui croaked.
He won't get past us. Rivet.
The city continued to be quiet for another 10 minutes, the only tangible sound from a distance being Bakugo's explosions in the air, and no sign of the hostages anywhere. The longer the lack of action went on, the more that the tension in the atmosphere seemed to thicken. They all knew that Kodai was probably messing with them, but it was hard not to get nervous regardless. Just as Ida was about to call in for another check-in, the radio delivered Shoji's voice into their ears. I got something, he said, causing everyone to halt in place where they were. A fashion shop on the east side, 3rd floor. Movement by one of the windows, along with the orange and blue matching his costume. Can you make positive ID? Blake asked as the combat group started to head in the indicated direction. I didn't see his face, but like I said, clothing matched and he was moving, the tentacle hero answered confidently. No one else has his color scheme, and the others are with me. We're heading over to check it out. Stand by, Ida said as his team began to sprint toward the eastern part of the city. You extras stay out of this! Bakugo's voice in the comm devices startled most of his peers, but they weren't exactly surprised. Sandman's mine! What do we do, Ida? Mina asked as they ran. For now, we'd let Bakugo engage on his own, the class president decided. Like Midoriya said, we can observe and gain intelligence from their conflict. Seems a little cold to just let him fight on his own, Ruby commented with a little frown. That's how he prefers to operate, Kirishima told her. Don't worry, though. We'll charge in as soon as it looks like he's out of his depth. Bakugo landed on the roof of the building that Shoji had described and proceeded to make his way inside from the only door on top of it. He moved with a surprising amount of stealth, his ears on alert for any sudden noises, and his lightning-fast reflexes ready to trigger his quirk at the first provocation. He moved to the appropriate floor and noticed the open layout of the clothing section that he had found himself in. There was a faint humming sound coming from the section near the windows, so he narrowed his eyes and approached with his right palm aimed in front of him. Once he had cleared the last aisle, he let out a noise of disgust. Squidward doesn't know what he's talking about, he growled as he lowered his gauntlet. It's a dress on a hanger in front of a fan that's making it move. Saiyaman played us. Like the cheap kazoo you are. Bakugo whirled around and aimed his gauntlet at the source of the voice, only to have a bolt of energy collide with the pin of his weapon, followed by a blinding explosion that blasted apart half the 3rd floor and sent Bakugo flying out of the building and into open air. Kodai lowered his arms in front of his face as the smoke began to clear, checking to make sure that his classmate had been ejected before he nodded in satisfaction. Since Bakugo had been using his quirk and moving around a fair amount since the beginning of the exercise, it had been reasonable of him to assume that his gauntlets would have been filled up with his nitro sweat. Normally, Bakugo could use that to his advantage by unleashing a massive explosion without risk of harm to himself, but against Kurdai it was nothing less than a liability. An Energon blast was more than enough to trigger an explosion on impact, one that Bakugo had absolutely no control over, a fact that Kurdai had exploited twice before, though never on this scale. As the boy walked away from the blast site, his ears detected the voices of his other classmates drawing closer, no doubt to try and corner him into a fight that he knew could well end with his loss if he wasn't very careful. I need to thin them out more before moving to open combat, he thought as he pulled up his map to plot his best escape method. The second that the explosion ripped through the air, Ruby had taken off in a blur of petals to catch Bakugo before he was slammed into a nearby building. They hoped that he wasn't unconscious from the blast, or else their first casualty would be one of their heaviest hitters. "How is he?" Ida asked once they saw Ruby catch the flying student and land safely on another building. "Don't ask about me!" "He's fine," Mina giggled as they continued to run toward the building. "But damn, that was over a lot faster than I thought it would be." "What happened?" Yaoyorozu asked. "Was it an ultimate move?" "He blasted my freaking gauntlet," Bakugo snarled angrily. "Caused all the stored up sweat inside it to detonate before I could use it on him." "Oof," Yang winced. "This is why you should wait for backup," Todoroki deadpanned. "Don't tell me what to do, Icy Hot!" "What do we do now, Ida?" Izuku asked. "Knowing Kurai, he's probably made his way somewhere else right now to plan his next ambush." "Does anyone have eyes on him?" their leader asked in response. "I see him," Ruby declared. "He's heading west on the rooftops." "Pursue," Ida ordered. "We'll catch up to you, but see if you can head him off. Ruaraka, get your team to Bakugo's location and administer first aid." "You got it." "I don't need help." "Let's go, ladies." Yang grinned as she leaped into the air and started to use her gauntlets to propel herself at high speeds in order to catch up to Ruby, who was already a red blur in the air above them. Todoroki began to slide on his ice, while Mina kept pace with her acid skates, and Izuku used full cowling to start leading the pack alongside Ida. Since Kirishima and Kaminari lacked any sort of speed enhancements, Weiss used a trio of hexes to allow them and Blake to run as fast as Todoroki could move with his ice. Kurai made a slight noise of irritation as he realized that his classmates were moving too fast for him to lose them like he had originally planned. He still didn't want to risk an all-out battle against 10 of his friends, but it was becoming clear that some sort of clash was about to be inevitable. He cleared 2 more rooftops before sliding to a stop in the building where he had prepared a certain contingency and turned around to wait for his opponents to close in. The second that Ruby touched down on the building, he drew his sword and held it in a ready position, even as she unfolded her monster scythe and held it behind her. "Nice try with the getaway, but you can't outrun me," she said with a confident smile. "And even if you can, the others will be here soon." "I'm well aware," Kurai replied in a casual tone. "That doesn't bother me." "It should," Ruby said, her smile starting to fade as she realized that Kurai's calm didn't seem to be a bluff. "Why aren't you nervous?" "I don't have a reason to be," he answered in the same placid tone. "I have you where I want you, and soon the others will be right where I want them." "Guys, are you hearing this?" Ruby asked as her body began to tense up. "Yeah," Izuku answered her. "What's he doing right now?" "He's got his sword out, but he's just standing there," the small girl answered as she continued to eye her opponent with a growing apprehension. "He doesn't look bothered at all." "Sounds like he has a trap set to me," Mina told them. "Kurai doesn't bluff. If he's that calm, he's got some kind of plan up his sleeve." "So what?" Ruby asked nervously. "Do we let him go? Do I fight him?" "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Kurai said as he reached behind himself and pulled out a remote device. "One of the hostages is tied up right below where you're standing. Make a move I don't like, and they go boom." Ruby froze in place, which gave Kurai an opening to dart forward and slam a sidekick into her stomach that sent her flying to crash into her sister, who had been about to land, sending them both flying backward and down into the streets just in time for the others to catch them up. Seeing them down below, Kurai held up the remote for them to see before putting it back in his costume. "I've told Rose where to find one of the hostages," he announced loud enough for them to hear him from the rooftop. "The detonator I have works anywhere in this city, so here's what I'm going to offer. A lot of you can come up and save the citizen that I can blow up anytime I choose by taking them all... A lot of you can come up and save the citizen that I can blow up anytime I choose by taking them all the way outside of the city limits, or you can come at me and the janitors of this building will be scraping pieces of the innocent party off the walls for weeks. Same thing happens if any number than the less totality of your party escorts the citizen off the premises. After all, you'll want to assure them of their safety, won't you?" "Damn, he's good at this," Kaminari muttered as he helped Yang up to her feet. "We can't just take you at your word for it," Todoroki called back up. "We need a visual confirmation that you have the hostage on hand." They're tied to a desk by the window facing you guys, Kodai responded readily. Northeast corner. Sure enough, now that they were looking for it, the young heroes could see the mannequin propped up in a chair with a bomb vest attached to it. Let's do as he says for now, Ida said in a lowered tone. Once we're out of his line of sight, we can send some of us to double back on another route. Yayorozu and Tokoyami are in this area. They can keep an eye on him for us until we're ready for another attack. What if he triggers the bomb once we lose him? Weiss asked. We still can't just believe that he's going to do what he says he is. Good point, Izuku said with a frown. And I doubt he'd just let us have the detonator. Let's see if he'll let us disarm the bomb before we leave, Mina suggested. He could still take them out if we backstab him, but he'd have to stay close by to do it. He knows that, but the trade-off as one citizen for his chance to escape is probably worth it to him, Blake said. You guys done yet? Kodai called down. I'm being very patient, but my trigger finger is getting itchy. We'll let you go, but only if you disable the bomb first. If you let us disable the bomb first, Ida called back. We need some kind of assurance that you won't simply do away with the civilian once their usefulness has expired. Kodai seemed to consider this for a moment before he nodded. Alright, Kirishima and Kaminari can come inside and disable the device, but no one else. Anyone else comes closer, and you know what happens. Why us? Kirishima called out. Because I think you'll take the longest to disarm it. Kodai shrugged, prompting looks of outrage from his friends. As he began to step away from the edge of the rooftop, he called back, Remember, no one follows me, and all of you go to the exit. If you don't, I've still got 9 other hostages that I can use against you. Izuku grit his teeth at that, but they didn't really have a choice in the matter. They could technically go after him since there were no real civilians in danger, but that would defeat the entire point of the exercise. For now, they would have to let him make his escape out of their line of sight and hope that he would try to stay close to ensure that they exited the city. The danger there, of course, was that if he had another hostage near the exit that they chose, he could use it to make his escape. Unfortunate as it was, they were going to have to take this gamble if they wanted another chance to catch him safely later on. Anyone else thinking the universe that Hikari didn't choose to become a real villain? Ruby asked as she rubbed her sore stomach, while Kirishima and Kaminari began their approach to the 2-story building where Kodai had been standing. He'd be a real problem for heroes. By the time Kaminari and Kirishima had managed to untie the civilian and short out the bomb with a precise burst of electricity, Kodai was nowhere to be seen. Yayorozu, Ada asked once they had confirmed that he wasn't in the immediate vicinity. Do you have eyes on him? Yes, he's in a building to the southwest of you, but you won't be able to see him from your angle, she replied. I'm not sure if he chose that building on a whim or if he has something else planned for it. Nothing Hikari does in battle is not deliberate, Tokoyami commented. I advise we exercise great caution in our surveillance. Yeah, be careful, Izuku agreed. Watch out for his hair turning indigo, because that means he can see in every direction at once. Understood. We'll notify you as soon as you're out of his line of sight. All right, you heard her, Ida said as he hiked the mannequin onto his back. We need to move where he can't see us, and then have some of you double back. Who do we put on that team? Izuku asked as they began to walk at a brisk pace toward the nearest exit, which happened to be the south gate. I'm thinking you and Todoroki plus Shinya and Rose, since they can move as quickly as you without making much noise, he answered. The goal is still to surprise him, not to mention that Rose may be able to shoot the detonator with her rifle. Will rubber bullets be able to do that? Izuku asked his friend, who nodded rapidly. You got it, she grinned. I'm a good enough shot to make it happen, even if he's moving, as long as I have a clear line of sight. Then we'll be sure to give it to you, Todoroki assured her. It was a few minutes of walking before Yayorozu was able to confirm that the combat team was safely out of Kodai's line of sight and that he was on the move again, heading further west. As soon as they heard that, Ida gave them the okay to split up their forces as they had discussed. He wished his friends luck before they took off down separate streets, all of them determined to catch Kodai off guard this time, instead of the other way around. However, Izuku's group were all nothing less than stunned when there was a loud sound followed by several yells of fright and confusion coming from the place where they had left the team with the mannequin. They doubled back to find their friends on the ground, rubbing their eyes and shouting in an attempt to overcome the ringing in their ears. What happened? Weiss asked as she knelt beside Blake. I thought Kaminari and Kirishima disabled the bomb and left it behind in the building. Look at this, Todoroki said as he got on his knees beside Ida while Izuku tried to calm their disoriented friend. He was indicating the remains of the dummy, which was now in several pieces and blackened in some spots. It looks like it was blown apart from the inside. What the? Ruby yelped. These are supposed to be vest bombs. He's totally cheating. Mr. Aizawa, All Might, doesn't he forfeit because of this? No, the homeroom teacher answered flatly, prompting outrage from many of the students in his class, though it seemed not to bother him.
There are many types of explosives these days that can be ingested, so it's not out of the question for a villain to force a hostage to swallow one and employ it as a secondary countermeasure against the authorities that try to capture him. I suggest you adapt to this new development quickly, Class A. You're already down by more than 25 minutes, and you failed to rescue even one civilian. Worse yet, one is now dead, meaning you'd have to explain what happened to their families if this were real. Get serious. With that, he cut his line of communication with them, leaving many of them feeling even sourer than before. Could this deck be any more stacked against us? Kaminari complained, his hearing having apparently recovered enough to hear their teacher's message. Unfortunately, I'd say the decks are cut fairly even given our overwhelming advantage of numbers. Ida groaned as he massaged his left cheek. Kurai simply knows how to play with his cards close to his chest. What I want to know is why he blew up the doll at all. Mina grumbled as she rubbed her head next to one of her horns. We were doing what he told us to do, and now he's just gonna have to have all of us after him again. Ow! Plus he's down a hostage. Why'd he do that if he stands to lose more than he gains? I have no idea, Izuku said with a frustrated look, but the timing of this is just too weird. How so? Ida asked his friend as he helped him up. The bomb went off the minute that we split up, the Greenette pointed out, but according to Yaoyorozu, we're not in his line of sight, so there's no way he could have seen us separate, right? Maybe he has security cameras in the area? Yang guessed. He wasn't given surveillance equipment, Weiss huffed. Honestly, didn't you pay attention during the briefing? He wasn't supposed to have bombs that he could stick inside of the dummies either. Wait, hold on, Mina said before the two girls could start arguing. Surveillance equipment. Yamamoto, are you still there? Yes, what's wrong? You still have eyes on Kurai? I do, the vice rep answered. Is there something specific that I should be looking for? Yeah, all of us are wearing earpieces to keep in touch with each other and the teachers, Mina said with a frown. It's standard for these kinds of exercises. What I need to know is if Kurai is wearing one or if he's got his scouter on him. He is wearing his scouter, Yaoyorozu said a little bit hesitantly. And now I think he's looking at us? Good job on figuring it out, Mina. Kurai's voice in their ears startled the rest of Class 1A, but he didn't give them much time to react to it. As my girlfriend was about to say, I've been listening in on your conversation since the beginning. Thus I know your teams, locations, even your individual strategies. How's the Armbaka go? Piss off my radio, loser! Same as usual, then. Kurai chuckled, causing several of his friends to let out groans of irritation. In any case, now that I know you know about my capability to eavesdrop, have fun coordinating over long distances. I look forward to seeing how you guys deal with this particular problem. Oh, and Yaoyorozu, Tokoyami? Yes? There was a sound of a cut-off scream, an explosion, and static from the radio as a small cloud of smoke and dust rose into the air from where Yaoyorozu and Tokoyami had been positioned. This was followed by Kurai saying, "Quit tailing me. Those of you on the combat team, you might want to get over to that building. It's not structurally sound, and it looks like it's going to come crashing down pretty soon. Might want to help out Yaoyorozu and Tokoyami before they get trapped underneath the rubble." What the? Izuku sputtered. Aren't you taking this all a little far? Nah, Kurai snorted. There's drones hidden all over the map that'll step in if things get too dicey, but you've got time to rescue them yourselves. Isn't that what heroes would do? With that, he cut off his audio and let his friends remain in a simmering, angry silence. He's sleeping on the floor for this, Mina growled as she started skating toward the building that Kurai had apparently blasted. Attention Class A, Ida said as they started to get moving again. I'm cutting off all long-distance contact. If Kurai is tracking us by listening in on our radios, we'll have to go silent in order to try and get a step ahead of him. Radio in if you've managed to rescue a hostage, but not before then, and otherwise keep the communications switched off. Good luck, everyone. Tokoyami was out for the count by the time the other students got to him. Yaoyorozu wasn't doing too well. There was also the fact that Kurai had been taken out of the... Tokoyami was out for the count by the time the other students got to him, and Yaoyorozu wasn't doing too well. There was also the fact that Kurai had taken out part of the foundations with additional energy bolts, so the 4-story complex was well on its way to coming down. Fortunately, they arrived in time to get both of their classmates out, but medical droids soon arrived to take Tokoyami away from the scene. As they watched him being wheeled away, Ida asked the vice representative what had happened. Tokoyami shielded me with Dark Shadow, which left him open to a follow-up attack from Hikari. She grunted as Blake helped set a splint for her injured wrist. However, even if he was able to get off of his trail for now, he slipped up on one matter. What's that? Todoroki asked. I saw the detonation device that he has, and it has a major flaw, she explained. It's a Nautilus 8200F series, which gives us a slight advantage. How? Yang asked. Also, why do you know that? I'll explain later, Yaoyorozu replied a trifle impatiently. Right now, what matters is the device that he's using can only detonate individual targets after he's come into close proximity to them for at least 10 seconds, and he can only do it one at a time. If he doesn't acclimate the device to the bomb's individual signature, he would have to set off all the explosions simultaneously. In real situations, this particular safety was implemented so that the bombs wouldn't be triggered by random radio waves, so even though he doesn't have to deal with that risk right now, he still has to deal with the handicap. Wait, that doesn't make any sense, Kaminar said in protest. He wasn't anywhere near us when the mannequin blew up. You sure you got the right thing? Positive, Yajirozu replied confidently. Once the signal has been locked on, he can set it off from anywhere that he wants within the city, but only that target. In order to switch individual targets, he'd have to recalibrate it to isolate another bomb, or else he sets them all off, which I doubt that he's going to do unless it's a last resort. After all, the longer he has the hostages to hold over us, the longer he can keep us at a distance, which works to his favor. She's right, Mina nodded to the others. Kurai's stupid strong, but he can't fight all of us at once, and he knows it. That's why he's been keeping us away from him. Okay, but if we're not keeping in touch with everyone else, how are we supposed to find him and get in close? Kirishima inquired. Now that I know what kind of device he's using, I can make a scanner to locate where the bomb signals are coming from. Yajirozu replied as her hand began to glow. Unfortunately, I don't know how to jam their specific signal without risk of setting them off. We'll have to settle for finding them and getting them out of the city as quickly as we can. Rose, Ida, Midoriya, I need you to go and deliver these to the rescue team so they have a better way of locating the bombs. When we find them, make sure you take the bombs out of the inside of the mannequin as well as the vests, Ida told the others. No, we can't do that, Izuku said, confusing the others. He continued on to say, if this were real, we wouldn't have time to safely operate on the citizens to get the bombs out of them. We can't just cut them open either, or else it probably won't count as a rescue. Young Midoriya is correct, All Might told them. Before they could ask him any questions, he added, Young Hikari is not hearing this conversation, don't worry. As far as he is concerned, you are all on radio silence. This is a private signal meant for teachers to reach the Hero Team students only. Got it. Don't take the bombs out of the dolls, Kaminari grumbled. Man, this sucks. Do your best, young heroes, All Might said before he shut off his mic. Hikari's resourcefulness is surprising, even for him, Todoroki commented. Enough with the complaining, Icy Hot! Everyone turned around to see Bakugo walking up to them, missing one gauntlet and part of his shirt, but otherwise fairly healthy. Playing it safe hasn't been getting you anywhere. We gotta keep him from blowing up the stupid citizens, right? So we go in, go fast, hit him hard, and we get the remote away from him. Without any hostages, we can fight him without having to hold back. We tried that, and he just blasted a mannequin, Weiss shot back. We can't risk that. He'll kill the other civilians if we provoke him. He's gonna blow him up anyway, Bakugo shouted back. The only way to win is to not play his game. Stop it, both of you, Ida commanded. Arguing amongst ourselves solves nothing. Wait, Izuku called out before any more shouting could be done. I think there's a way for us to get both things done at the same time. Turning to Yajirozu, who had finished making the scanners, he asked, You said that he has to get close to the bombs to be able to trigger them individually, right? Yes, that's right. Then I think I have a plan. This better be good, Deku. Kurai paused, having taken refuge in the back of a mock grocery store, tapping his scouter's radio function in order to try and determine if his classmates had switched frequencies since Ida had ordered radio silence in order to throw him off the trail, but it seemed as though he were genuinely avoiding the use of the radio. He was a bit of a nuisance, but he wasn't out of tricks yet. He still had two other ways to track their movements if he couldn't determine their locations through conventional methods. Ojiro and Sato are closest, last I checked, he thought as he started to move toward the back of the store. They were getting close to another hostage, so it might be prudent to discourage them. Hopefully I can neutralize them before they make it to safety. Might be good to have another bargaining chip handy if the others catch up to me. He edged out of the alleyway behind the grocery store, his senses on alert for any hint of danger directed at him. Once he was certain he wasn't about to be ambushed just yet, he made a beeline for the crossroads where he had last marked his classmates. With any luck, they would still be searching the office complex that he had chosen to inspect, so he kept his sword handy just in case. When he reached the complex and failed to see them anywhere, he focused his divine eye for just a second, long enough for him to detect the other two heroes snooping around in the dentist's office. Sorry guys, nothing in there, he thought with a slight grin as he released the power and dashed inside. If you checked the chiropractic office opposite that wing, you might have had better luck. He did pause underneath the stairs when he heard the two of them talking, drawing closer to his location from above. Think we should check the other offices? Ojiro was asking his partner. There's several rooms we haven't checked yet. We can't afford to check every room right now, Sato answered. Since we can't use the radio without Hikari hearing our plans, we gotta pick up the pace, or else time's gonna run out. As he was saying this, Kudai silently gripped his sword, his mechanical thumb hovering over the activation switch, ready to go to action the instant that the two of them came within striking distance. Man, this test is way harder than I thought it'd be. Ojiro sighed as their voices continued to draw closer. Well, it's Hikari we're up against. Sato seemed to agree. Ever since the sports festival, I've always thought that the guy was going to take All Might's place someday. Now that we got to try to beat him, it just feels like another reminder of how much a gap separates him from guys like us. You said it. The tailed boy muttered as the sounds of footsteps began to descend the stairs. I'll always give him my best to become a great hero, but Hikari's too good. Even if he'd been born with a quirk like the rest of us, instead of getting it from All for One, he's got even more cool under pressure than Todoroki, and his instincts are sharper than Bakugo's. Yeah, not to mention he knows almost as much of villains and their quirks as Midoriya does about heroes. Sato groaned as they neared the bottom step. Everything just adds up to us losing out to him, no matter what the competition is. Only if you keep up that attitude, Kudai said, even as he swung the hilt of his weapon to crash the butt of the tool into the side of Sato's head, instantly rendering the larger student unconscious. To his credit, Ojiro reacted fast, swinging his tail at Kudai with enough force to knock him off balance, even after he tried to block with his metal arm. His sword went flying through the glass door that led to the outside, sending shards of broken glass all over the pavement in the process. Even as Kudai recovered his footing, Ojiro tapped his earpiece and quickly said, Hikari's in the northwest. I'll try to keep him here, but I need backup, now! Kudai clicked his tongue and hurled a laser blast that narrowly missed Ojiro's head, even as the two of them settled into different fighting stances. Is that Shaolin? Kudai guessed while eyeing his opponent critically. Snake style, if I'm not mistaken. I figured it'd be a good match for your Shorin Ryu. The tailed hero responded with a nervous grin. Your moves tend to be a little too direct for any good move against a more reactive fighting style. Let's see if you're still saying that after I kick your ass, Kudai shot back. I'm betting that you can't take too many hits from a metal fist before you start to wear out. Did you forget that I trained to resist pain by hitting Kirishima's quirk repeatedly during summer camp? Ojiro reminded him. That won't even be a factor. Oh. Kudai muttered right before he darted forward and aimed a knife hand at Ojiro's abdomen. They exchanged a few blows before the martial arts hero slid out of the way, wrapped his tail around his opponent's prosthetic, and then used it to slam Kudai against the wall twice before dropping him on the tiled floor with a pained grunt. Ow! You gonna give up? Ojiro asked when Kudai failed to move for a moment, his arms flopped out to either side. Would you believe me if I said yes? Kudai grunted. No? Good man. There was a blur of motion from the down student that ended with Ojiro's legs being swept out from under him, and before he could use his tail to regain his balance, Kudai had pegged him with a yellow energy blast that sent him flying out into the street to land next to his opponent's sword. While Kudai made to follow, Ojiro snapped up the weapon and tapped the button that was near the emitter, causing the weapon to flash to life as he held it between him and his opponent. Kudai eyed his friend critically before saying, You've obviously got some experience with weapons training, but that saber belongs to me. Trying to use it against me would be like using my hand to smack my face. Amusing, but fairly ineffective at causing any real pain. Won't know until I try. Ojiro grinned as he prepared to leap at his opponent. Okay, Kudai said as he reached out with his metal hand. You were warned. Ojiro was suddenly yanked forward, his sword being torn out of his grasp while he nearly fell flat on his face, only just managing to stop his rapid descent by scraping his palms and knees on the road beneath him. Before he could even try to get up, however, Kudai delivered a whirling axe kick to the spot between his shoulder blades, driving all the air out of his lungs and leaving him as a groaning mess on the tarmac. Just to add insult to injury, Kudai stabbed him in the back with his sword, right where his heart lay, and burning the skid badly enough to make him shout in pain. It's in low power mode, but if this had been real, you'd be dead right now, Kudai informed him in a matter-of-fact tone. Some advice for the next time. Don't try to use equipment that you don't trust with your life. You never know what kind of dead man's trigger that might have that a weapon might have on it. After all, you might end up as a dead man because of it. Ojiro's only response before Kudai knocked him out was a groan that seemed half angry, half disappointed. No sooner than that had happened than did Todoroki and Yang arrive on the scene. Damn it, the boy thought as he turned to face the both of them. He hadn't had a chance to get close enough to synchronize the detonator to the bombs attached to the dummy in the building that he had just exited. Let's see if we can't lead them away so they come back later. I'll secure the hostage if you hold Hikari back, Todoroki suddenly said, surprising his friend. I'll be able to get them out of the danger zone faster that way. Sounds good to me. Yang grinned as she cracked her knuckles. I owe this guy some pain for kicking my sister into me. Kudai wondered for a second if they were trying to get him to admit that there was, in fact, a hostage in the building, but then Todoroki bolted toward the building while ascending on an ice ramp that led up to the window of the office where he had stashed the doll. How the hell did he know about that? He thought in surprise. The doll was stuffed in a medical supply closet, so there was no way anyone in his class could have seen it through a window. However, the heterochromic boy had figured it out. Kurdai wasn't about to just let his friend get the prize. With a shout, he unleashed a trio of energy blasts at Todoroki, aiming to either stun the boy or destroy the ramp before he could make full use of it. Instead of trying to dodge the attack, however, Todoroki merely spun on his heel and unleashed a blast of fire that collided with Energon and made the bolts explode before they came close enough to inflict damage, though the resulting shockwaves destroyed several windows in the vicinity. Before Kurdai could try again, Yang was charging at him, using shotgun blasts from her gauntlets to enhance her speed. Like Bakugo, getting ready for a vicious right hook that might well break his jaw if it made direct contact. No thanks. He moved fast, spinning around her at the last second and hurling his sword at Todoroki, once again stopping him just short of entering the building, while also managing to face back around to keep an eye on Yang's movements. He underestimated her dexterity and timing, though, because she had used another shotgun blast to kill her momentum, and yet another one to drive her elbow back into Kurdai's stomach, stunning him breathless, and leaving him open to a reverse kick that knocked him flat on his back with a wordless grunt. Ha! Yang chuckled. Looks like it's time for you to hit the road. Oh, Kurdai groaned. That pun hurt worse than the kick. Oh, shut up. You make him too. She continued to laugh. Besides, it's about time someone kicked you to the curb. That one wasn't bad. As they were speaking, Kurdai managed to notice that Todoroki had made it inside the building, and he knew that he needed to either neutralize him and Yang, the mannequin, or both. Guess it can't be helped, he thought as he shut his eyes and focused on his root chakra. Either one of these two will be enough of a problem on their own, but together... Yang was aiming for a final shot that would knock her out her opponent when Kurdai's skin began to turn a bright red hue that she knew meant trouble for her. Oh no, hey! Her cry of surprise was drawn out when Kurdai kicked her knee to the side, making both her legs buckle, and then followed it up with a pair of scarlet energy bolts that damaged both her gauntlets. When she tried to curb stomp him, he put his hands behind his head and used them as purchase to slam his boots into her stomach and sent her flying higher than the second story of the office complex where Todoroki was currently located. Before she could fully register what was happening to her, Kurdai was already on his feet with his right hand held out to his side, crimson energy congealing into a crackling ball that was the size of his own head. Kurdai then hurled the energy at the building that contained his hostage while shouting, "Big Bang Attack!" The giant ball exploded in a brilliant flash of power as soon as it was in the room, flattening half the complex and revealing a severely damaged ice shell that Kurdai knew had to be one of Todoroki's defensive moves. The only question that remained after Kurdai had spin-kicked Yang into a stoplight was if Todoroki had managed to find the hostage. If he hadn't, there was no way the explosives hadn't been set off with the force of that blast. If his friend had gotten there in time, however... The temperature dropped rapidly as another ramp of ice shot away from the ruined building. Todoroki had its head with the mannequin draped over his shoulder. Damn it! Kurdai silently cursed as he released basic instinct, knowing that if he sustained the form any longer, he would be too tired to fight off any more reinforcements that came along. As it was, his vision blurred for a couple of seconds and he felt like the wind had been knocked out of him again. Still, he had enough power in reserve to recover quickly and move on from the scene of the battle after retrieving his sword. He was tempted to detonate all the mannequins in order to prevent any more from being found, but then he would have the issue of every remaining student in Class 1A coming after him. Tokuyami, Xiaolong, Sato, and Ojiro are all out of the exercise, he thought as he ducked into a nearby alleyway and made straight for a manhole that would take him below the surface. 4 people down, 1 doll destroyed, almost an hour wasted on their part. On the other hand, that means I have to keep avoiding them for another 3 if they've rescued 1 hostage. They still have 19 people who are going to be after me if they can rescue the others. The real problem facing him was that he had no idea how Todoroki had figured out where he had hidden the mannequin. Sure, they knew of his location because of Ojiro's call for help, but his friend hadn't even stopped to try and fight him except in self-defense. He went straight for the rigged doll, when he shouldn't have even been able to tell where it was. Sato and his partner certainly couldn't have told either of them where it was. I need to get close to rig another one before I attack somebody again, or they attack me. That in mind, he triggered the last function of his scouter, pausing in place to make sure that he would be able to read his map correctly. As the screen flashed to life on the lens of his device, he frowned at an unexpected detail. Having been able to scan the biometrics of all of his classmates over the course of their time in UA, and being provided with a detailed map of the city block, he was able to track his friends' movements in real time, which was a handy feature to have if he needed to coordinate with them in the field. Or rather, in this case, if he needed to have an idea of what he would be getting into if he chose to attack one group nearby, he could know exactly who was up against. The issue facing him now was that the combat team seemed to have split up and were now assisting the rescue operatives. Every single one of them were heading towards a hiding place or another where he had stashed the dolls. There were no hesitations on their travels, unlike earlier in the exercise when they had all had a hostage. When they had all been cautious in their approach, likely afraid to be seen by him and force his hand in blowing up a hostage. They know, Kurdai thought with a deep frown. He didn't know how they could know where the hostages were, but it was clear that they did, and that left him with very few options. One, he could take out one of the weaker teams to try and hide the hostage or hostages in a new location in order to prevent the heroes from getting away with all of them, and thus winning the exercise. The problem with that was he had no clue how they had found him in the first place, so even if he could incapacitate some of his classmates without making too much noise, there was no guarantee that the others wouldn't find the hostages again before he could set up a trap. The second option was for him to grab a hostage and make a run for it, but with the way the teams were divided up now, there was no question that it would either be a close call to make it outside the city limits with a hostage in hand, and that was assuming he could fight off the others while protecting his insurance. His last option was to blow up all the remaining hostages and force the heroes to seek him out for an all-out confrontation. This was the most straightforward plan, but it also carried the highest risk, because there was little chance that he could effectively pick off his friends 2 or 3 at a time without the threat of a person being blown up by any hasty actions by the time they crossed him again. Then again, if I don't act soon, they'll all get the hostages out of the city, and I won't be able to win except by defeating them all anyway, he thought with a grimace as he reached into his gi and gripped the detonator. Oh well. Kurdai waited for a few minutes while keeping an eye on the map, his thumb hovering over the button in anticipation of the right moment to strike. He allowed his friends to grab up all the mannequins and make a rapid retreat to the city limits, all of them moving in different directions, seemingly afraid of him striking at them simultaneously if they clumped together. Just when one of the faster groups was approaching the exit gate, he hit the button and was rewarded by the sound of a few explosions going off above ground, near where he was having positioned himself by the west gate in order to be able to confirm that his emergency plan would work. His scouter alerted him to an incoming call, so he answered it quickly. "Hello," he answered in a low tone, not wanting his voice to echo too far in the tunnels. "Young Hikari, that was a very brash move," All Might said with what sounded like a frown. "The heroes may have only rescued one civilian, but now you have to defeat all of them in order to reclaim your victory." "Yeah, I'm aware," he murmured, "but they clearly had figured out some way to track down my hostages, so if I left things alone, they would have won pretty quickly. Now they'll be disoriented, demoralized, and mad, which will cause them to make mistakes that I can exploit. It's a risky move, but I believe it to be the right one that I had. I believe it to be the best one that I had, sir." "It's a bold move, sure," All Might sighed, "but I don't know that it was the best one." Kurdai paused, a quizzical smile on his face. "Whose side are you on, exactly?" he asked his teacher. "I thought you guys wanted the heroes to win." "I want all of my students to succeed in giving it their best effort," the retired pro answered. "I suppose we'll soon see whether or not that was your best." Done talking, he hung up the line, leaving Kurdai to shrug to himself. "It was this high-speed chase, and I think Rose and Bakugo might have me outmaneuvered when it comes to a pursuit in the urban jungle," he thought as he started to walk south, toward a building that he had marked for potential demolition earlier. "Seriously, where does UA get the money to repair an entire faux city district every semester?" Midoriya and Uraraka stared at the destroyed doll, dumbstruck. "How did he know?" the Greenette whispered. "Todoroki said that him and Xiaolong kept him busy long enough that he shouldn't have been able to notice our change of formations. And according to Koda and Shoji, he disappeared underground, so there's no way he could have seen us. And we weren't even using the radios, so how did he—" "His radio isn't the only function we forgot about," Ida said, surprising the other two as he and Asui approached, looking like they had been on the wrong end of another concussion blast. "His scouter can store the biometric information of anybody he encounters, and he had sufficient map data. He would be able to keep track of all of us, no matter where we went. I was hoping that he would have been denied the use of that function, especially since he went so long without using it." "What makes you say that, Tenya?" Ochako asked as Izuku helped her to her feet.
"I climbed up taller buildings to check on our classmates,"
Asui croaked.
"It seems like everybody's hostages have been destroyed. Rivet."
"So he could be anywhere now," Izuku mumbled. "If he just set off ours, we know that he was nearby since he'd have to be close by to trigger the singular detonation. But since the multi-blast trigger works anywhere within the city, he could blow up all of the citizens anywhere he wanted. This does mean that the only way for him to win the scenario is to beat all of the heroes, since he can't take a hostage with him out of the city to ensure that we don't follow him, but it still seems like a risky move."
"Haven't seen him like this in a while,"
Asui commented. "Just let him," Ochako sighed as she rubbed her sore head. "We need a plan for catching Kurdai. Since the hostages aren't on a timer anymore, I doubt that the time limit applies, so maybe we take our time trying to fight him this round." "I agree," Ida nodded as he reached for his belt. "Let's get everyone together to discuss a strategy. It may put us closer together, but at least we'll be on hand to fight him if he tries to ambush us." With that, he fired off a flare that Yayurozu had given him earlier. Just in the case that one of them required assistance from the others. It wasn't as effective as using the radio, but they didn't want Kudai to listen in on their conversations. Won't he know that we're meeting up since he can use a scouter to watch us from anywhere? Ochako asked. Yes, but knowing Kudai, he won't want to fight us as a large group, Ida answered. In the past, he may have preferred to limit the amount of fights he engaged in over drawing things out, but because his quirk no longer stresses his mind the way that it used to, he can afford to be more careful. To the side, Izuku was still mumbling to himself, and his friend felt that it had gone off for long enough. Midoriya, focus! He shouted, causing the other boy to cease his mutterings and come back with full awareness of his surroundings. Sorry! I see that our situation has only worsened, Todoroki commented as he slid to a stop beside his friends. A short burst of fire melted the ice that he had used to make his way over, clearing the way for Yayorozu and Blake to come into the street. I want to say it was a good thing that those weren't real people, but what if they had been? Ochako asked dejectedly. Then we'd do the only thing we could, growled a familiar voice, followed by the sound of a small explosion. The group turned to see Bakugo walking toward them with a feral smile on his face. We'd kill Saiyaman and avenge the stupid citizens that couldn't help themselves. Kudai waited until he had a group of 3 people passing overhead before making his move. He blasted the manhole covering over his head, sending it crashing into Kirishima, who barely hardened his body in time to prevent the impact from causing him serious injury. Before his teammates, Kaminari and Weiss, could react, Kudai had leaped out of the hole and struck the electric boy in the back hard enough to send him flying down the street. He had done this to prevent his classmate from jacking up his prosthetic arm with his quirk, as well as disrupt the flow of any teamwork that the 2 boys had built up over the course of their friendship. He hadn't really had a chance to test if his replacement limb could handle exposure to vast amounts of electricity, nor did he think it would actually damage it since it was powered by Energon, but now was probably not the best time to find out. Weiss was the only one he hadn't hit yet, and he knew that she was quick enough to muster a counterattack, so he leaped up high in the air, out of the range of any of her close quarters techniques. He was just in time to avoid an ice trap from one of the girl's hexes, and he used the spare moment to gather the energy that he needed between his palms. And the second that his upward momentum ceased, he fired the Kamehameha straight down, forcing the girl to use another hex to speed out of the way and giving him some breathing room. He didn't get much of it. Kirishima had been momentarily stunned, but he had recovered quickly enough to now be back in the fight. He charged at his friend with a mighty shout, his rock-hard fist coming back in order to deal a devastating strike to Kudai, who narrowed his eyes as his mind raced to find a solution. Firing a blast of Energon in either direction, he managed to obscure Kirishima's vision enough to make him miss and keep Weiss at bay for another second. Using that second to give himself firm purchase on the ground, he then grabbed Kirishima by the arm and swung him around his body like a top before sending him hurtling straight at Weiss, who was again forced to use her hexes in order to slow down her teammate and prevent injury to either of them. Kudai then surprised both of them by bolting to where Kaminari was trying to get to his feet and putting the blonde boy between him and his opponents. He activated his sword and held to Kaminari's neck, causing the 3 of his opponents to freeze in place. New plan, he called out. You're going to let me walk out of here or your friend gets it in the neck. Weiss shrugged at that. Go ahead, she said dismissively. What? Kaminari yelped. That's so not manly! Kirishima yelled at his teammate who neglected to look his way. Maybe that's because I'm a lady, she sniffed as she held her sword aloft. Besides, heroes know that fighting villains is a hazardous occupation. He should have realized that this could happen to any of us. Real heroes find a way to save their friends and stop the bad guys, Kirishima protested. Okay, this is getting us nowhere, Kudai said as the scouter alerted him to several high-power quirk signatures rapidly closing in. Screw it, direct approach it is. He sheathed the sword and triggered another one of his chakra abilities, turning his hair and eyes orange as he felt unimaginable strength flooding his body. Refixing his grip on Kaminari's collar, he then tossed the boy over his shoulder, sending him sky-high with a violent slipstream trailing him as he screamed in fright. Dude! Kirishima gaped. He'll die from that fall! Well, we better hope the Rose or Chaco catches him then. Kudai grinned savagely, making his classmates very nervous. This is the one that Midoriya said to avoid, right? Weiss said as she held her sword in a reverse grip. Chill, I won't use it for long, Kudai chuckled. Just long enough to keep our friends away. Before they could ask what he meant by that, he turned his back and leaped toward a 4-story building and lashed out with a single kick, then knocked the entire structure off its foundations and sent it flying through the air in the general direction of their other classmates. The feat leaving the 2 of his opponents with their jaws dropped as they beheld the full extent of his physical might. The building crashed into those around it, causing them to explode and add to the rubble storm that was fast approaching the eastern part of the city, obscuring any visuals of the others. Turning around once again to face them, he allowed the power to fade away, blinking a few times as he did. Glancing over his shoulder, he muttered, might have overdone it. You think? Any further comments from Kirishima were cut off as Kurdai hit his face dead center with an Energon blast that knocked him on his back. Before he could try to get to his feet, Kurdai was leaping toward them, his sword in hand and swinging for Weiss, who barely managed to block the strike in time for Kurdai to land on her teammate, driving the wind out of his lungs. Again. Robbed of the concentration that he needed to maintain his quirk, Kirishima finally succumbed to a consciousness from a kick that struck him in the head. Weiss immediately tried to use her swordplay to gain an advantage, even as the rubble crashed back to the earth in the background, shaking the entire fake city where they stood. To her surprise, however, Kurdai was more than managing to hold his own with his blade, even against her irregular left-handed fighting style. She imagined that most weapons would have been sheared through by his Energon sword, but her rapier was made from a special metal that was nearly impossible to destroy, and so it allowed her to face him on equal footing in terms of swordplay. Where did you learn to fight with that? She grunted as she feinted at his left leg, only to shift her aim at the last possible second to try and take him in the abdomen. He spun his sword in a pinwheel of light to knock aside the attack off course as he answered, "Mix of martial arts and my obsession with Star Wars." Weiss recovered her balance with the grace of a well-trained dancer and resumed her offensive, making sure to keep up the attack so that he didn't have time to use his quirk or formulate any real strategies. At first, her method seemed to be working, but in her haste, she had forgotten two crucial facts about her opponent. First, he was much stronger than she was, both in terms of physiology and the power that his quirk gave him. Second, Energon gave him vast reserves of energy that he could convert into stamina in order to outlast even the most tenacious of opponents. In other words, she wore out a lot faster than he did, and with how many hexes he had already forced her to conjure in self-defense, she was already getting tired. After nearly a full minute of intense swordplay, Kurdai got the jump on her by working his sword in a circle near the hilt of her weapon, burning her hand and causing her to involuntarily drop it and recoil. The boy then stomped on the blade to prevent her from trying to pick it up and leveled his blade at her neck while saying, "Your technique's a lot better than mine, I give you that. But you're still outmatched. Give up unless you want me to throw you into a building like I did your teammates." Weiss firmed up her chin and said nothing in response. Her pride would not allow her to concede, even in a situation as dire as this one. It was a trait that had seen her triumph many times, and to a degree, Kurdai could respect it. However, that fact was not enough to dissuade him from exploiting it as a weakness. "Your funeral," he shrugged before drawing his foot back. "Go to hell!" Bakugo's approaching roar preceded a second bellow that formed the words, "AP shot!" A single piercing blast of fire tore through the air where Kurdai had been a second ago, though he managed to get off a shot at Weiss, who was sent flying by the blast. The second that Kurdai had both feet on the ground, he saw Bakugo zipping through the air to catch Weiss and then land safely on the roof of a building that was still intact. "Bakugo," the albino girl groaned. "Thanks. You're my hero." "Get it together and learn how to save yourself, Ice Queen." "Don't care. He ran me and the others over way too hard." Before Kurdai could try and move to finish off the girl, he found himself being surrounded by Izuku, Todoroki, Mina, Ruby, and Blake. Frowning slightly, he said, "I could have sworn I dropped a few buildings on you guys. How did—" Todoroki shielded us with his ice, and Rose moved Blake out of the way fast enough to avoid getting hit. His girlfriend answered, looking a little put out with him. "Not everyone made it out awake, but I think we've got enough of us here to do the job. You're in trouble now, Buster." "Yeah, sure looks that way," Kurdai muttered in response. He was now in the very situation that he had wanted to avoid in the first place, but there was little to be done about it now but to fight. By his estimate, he had used about a fifth of his available power, so his stamina wouldn't be an issue. It was just knowing who to attack first and who would be the most difficult to avoid whilst fighting back. With those thoughts in mind, he triggered Joyous Light again and swiveled his head to face Izuku, who had suddenly paled. "Hey, Deku," he said with another crazed smile while his right hand clenched into a fist. "Texas, don't you dare— Smash!"
Even if they doubt me, push me where I stand, I will say it proudly, so you know who I am. There is something that sleeps within you, listen close. You will soon know every door that is open for you, one is closed. Soon you will know what's on the other side.
So it was mostly a lot of action this chapter. I feel like there wasn't really any character growth to be spoken of, I don't think. Like, we can kind of see like how some of the people have progressed thus far, but nothing cathartic happened in this chapter. I feel like.
Well, we have a lot of good strategizing and playing off of each other's strengths
And weaknesses.
Yeah, I enjoyed that Yairozu got to have kind of a brilliant moment when she figured out how to track him.
Yep. Or at least track his targets.
I think it was nice. It was comforting, I think, having All Might tune in with Kudai and kind of check in and be like, hey, what are you doing, man? Because, I mean, even when he's, chasing him just a little bit,
Yeah.
I think it's still... I think in his position, it's still a little comforting to know, oh, okay. They're not just like giving up on me and pitting everyone against me. They're still supporting me.
Honestly, I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm glad it came across that way.
Yeah.
Now that you brought it up.
This exercise is for everybody, not just him.
Yeah.
So, it's nice that All Might was able to kind of tune in with him. And then, of course, the brilliance of Kudai for being able to track and tune in on their frequencies.
Yeah, he'll have to thank his brother for that one.
This is true.
He could have kept an eye on most of them at any given point with Divine Eye, but that would put a pretty big stress on his powers.
Yeah.
So, but
Some
he has
fun
the technology.
banter between the
you were laughing pretty hard when he like almost took out Bakugo at the beginning of the chapter. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, poor Bakugo. I know I should.
No, not poor Bakugo. Not poor Bakugo. Bakugo got what was coming to him.
This is true.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. I was like, it was difficult trying to figure, because like Bakugo's not stupid. I'm just like, all right, how do I lure him in there in a believable manner? And then of course he's just like, it's this guy's fault. He gave me bad information. And then Kudai's just like, hi.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool hearing them say, "Oh, we'll cut open the dummies. Oh wait, we can't.
You can't just cut open a person.
Operate on an actual person
unless you have like someone with an instant heal quirk on hand, which there's like maybe 3 of those people that exist. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, listening to them strategize and think about, okay, how can we
what if this was real?
How are we gonna get this grade, basically?
Yeah.
Which I think that the critical thinking, as a teacher, the critical thinking that's happening is cool to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm at the beginning of the school year, and so I'm having to plant the seeds, and that's what I'm looking for. So this is a good peak, I think, for the teachers. Like, we've had a lot of rising action and a lot of learning, and now we get to see them really applying it under some
controlled circumstances.
Even though it's pretty emotionally stressful, because none of them are very happy about this exercise too.
Yeah.
Either. So.
No, it's like, oh man, I lost what I was. I had a point, and I lost what I was gonna say. Yeah, I've said this before. Like, one of the things I love, like one of the things that made me fall in love with My Hero Academia is like how much they have to think about like how to not only how to use their strengths but also consider their weaknesses. So I was like, all right, I want to do some chapters that kind of focus on that. It's still keeping up. It's fine.
Okay.
It'll stagger a little bit sometimes, but the audio is still recording.
Okay, sorry, I messed up.
No,
to get that part out.
No, don't worry about it. She hasn't seen like the apparatus that I use for the audio, so she's looking at it in real time.
It lagged for a moment, and I got stressed. I was like,
like, as long as one track doesn't get like all the way across the screen without the other one, then we're fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like a tenth of a second delay sometimes, but I always whenever I listen to the audio, it's like it comes through just fine.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
We have some fun little banter moments. It's hard because there's something that I've been looking forward to that I don't want to give away. I feel like some people may figure it out.
Yeah.
at this point because you're.
I'll be interested to see if anybody figures it out.
And honestly, in retrospect, I don't think I picked up on it a whole
No?
lot at the time when you were reading this to me, because
Like, it hasn't happened yet, but it's like
you're planting seeds. There's some
exactly.
seeds being planted,
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
in the social structure.
yeah.
Yeah, something I've definitely been looking forward to
Yeah.
is happening. I'm curious to see if you guys pick up on that. And then, of course, at the end, we have the very nice climax where we
He
turn
chucked
on.
the city block at them.
Oh my gosh!
I was
Hey,
like going into it, I was just like, okay, I need to like go back and watch like All Might's fight against All for One, because like that's the scope of damage that he can cause whenever he uses Joyous Light. So I was like, am I going too far with? Oh no, he can easily do this. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Nice. And I think that's about it.
Yeah,
for
like
me.
we see that he has like, because he's only used Joyous Light in combat a couple of times now. The first time is when he used it against Overhaul and he just went nuts.
Yeah.
This time it's like he uses it for a few moments and then like he's making sure to like dial it back before he starts going crazy. But him using it like when he's already like kind of pinned up backed up into a corner, he's just kind of like, all right, gonna go crazy.
Yeah, well, it's nice that it's good that he's figuring out how to do it in doses so that he can turn it on and off, because he's able to maintain that level of sanity that he needs to be strategic.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure his instructors are not going to be happy about him using.
I don't think that. No, that won't really. I don't think that would factor too much, because he's supposed to be playing part of the villain. Like, he doesn't have to. He's not bound by the morality of like, oh no, I caused all this collateral damage and stuff. For him, collateral damage is a good thing.
This is true. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the next section goes, because we'll have the climax of the fight, and then I'm sure some review with the teachers.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
looking
interested.
forward
What
to
do
seeing.
you guys think? Do you think Kurdai's gonna manage to beat all of them, or do you think Bakugo and Deku are gonna come in clutch? Maybe they'll because like when those two work together, they can pull off some pretty stupid good stuff. It's just a question of can they get there. I think.
Will they get there?
Will they get there?
I don't think there's. I think that they can. It really. There's a lot of variables. I'm not going to keep going because I'm exhausted and I'm just going to ramble. But I think that's about it. I think that's about it for this chapter, though.
Yeah. Like I said, like a lot of it was action, so there wasn't like a whole lot to cover. But I hope you guys enjoyed the chapter regardless. So the next one's gonna finish this little mini arc that I came up with, and then we'll get back into the main storyline, which is where season 5 began for the anime. So the Class 1A versus Class 1B, that's happening soon. And I'm getting some sketches ready that I think you guys will be interested to see. So I don't know. Got any other closing comments? No? Okay.
No.
Just trying not to fall asleep there.
Sorry.
My wife definitely just fell asleep on this podcast,
I'm
guys.
sorry. It's too bad we don't have the camera for that one. Oh gosh. See, you guys have had to watch me yawn plenty of times. You don't need to see me nodding off. All right. Well, I'm going to go to bed.
All right.
But good listening to your reviews
Yeah,
and
thank
hearing
you,
from you
guys.
guys. Looking forward to catching you in a couple weeks.
All right. Stay plus ultra until the next one.